Welcome back to the conversation, Getting Life to Work. This is a very special moment because I am recording on my own, meaning tech support's not here. He is doing his full-time job, and this is cool. So if this works, this is a big deal. I did it on my own because the husband, is incredible, found a way to help me get things set up easy on my own. I can record when there's not a ton of activity in the house. And so we'll see how this goes. I am really excited. What a major couple of weeks, by the way. We had an unexpected break on the podcast. I apologize. I know you are all praying for me that my schedule will loosen up so that we can get more Getting Life to Work message out, get more of the message out. And I do apologize. There's that tickle in the back of my throat. It didn't happen at all until I started recording. Anyway, getting this message out and, I would love to do an online discussion group, a membership, all the things. And this particular last couple of weeks, I just had a really heavy lift with web stuff, rebranding, creating media kits, all the things that it takes to get the message out. But we're in a good place and I'm really excited about it. Thank you for your patience with me. And on top of that major, we'll call it, on top of that, I had some major leadership opportunities, we'll call them. More like torture via tough decisions, personnel decisions, navigating one of the boards that I sit on. It was draining and complicated, but God always provides a solution and a way through. Not everybody gets what they want. That's the reality. The tough and yucky part of leading. But leadership is rewarding, and I think people that are born to lead should lead. But I was on a podcast earlier this week, and we were talking about this very thing about how you might be born to lead, but it doesn't mean you know how to lead automatically. Leadership is a learned skill, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So this is part 2 of the Resolved series, and really, this is actually an introduction to the direction that I'm taking this whole thing I'm doing, right? And I really hope that you will go with me here. When I've studied the heart of God for decades, like I have, and I have this, what I believe is a very real calling and a gifting in communication, public speaking, that type of thing. It can seem like someone like me should be maybe pastoring in a church, ministering in a church. And for a long time, I really thought that made sense to me because I have a lot of church background. Vocational church ministry, over a decade doing it. And I kind of thought that was my role, and really, adjust this because it's kind of in my face here. There we go. Maybe I was trying to do what I was familiar with, instead of what really was an uphill battle. They say everything worthwhile is uphill. What really makes the most sense for my entire history, my entire past experiences, my training, which is building a self-development and personal growth company. We talk about Bible stuff for sure, but we also dive into a lot of personal development and a lot of personal growth. And nearly every book you see behind me is something of that vein. And I love it. I love it. Years ago, maybe 7 or 8 now, I developed a proprietary teaching called The 4 Masteries of Limitless Living. And I've touched on this a couple times that I wanted to start bringing this in. And I'm really excited to start working these materials into our conversations here because you're going to learn so much. And, I've built a personal planner around it that I've used for years and haven't marketed yet. I'm writing a book. I've got an online course coming, developing a discipleship on steroids mentorship program. I mean, it's going to be like, what? Around these 4 masteries, these 4 things. And it's stuff I want to put into your hands, tools that I've never leveraged yet. And here's the thing. Where did I come up, speaking of leverage, of these 4 masteries? Well, I was looking back, again, 7 or 8 years, at what worked in my life. What organizations had really thrived, what teams, what had worked and what didn't work. What part of my life fell apart and why? And so these 4 masteries, tools, when I leveraged them, things worked. When I failed to leverage all 4, I wasn't walking in peace. I wasn't walking in purpose. It was like having a table with 3 legs instead of 4. And what brought about the most peace and success, and what my focus was at the time, what I was actively doing that brought success, and what I failed to do that destroyed that success and limited it. Okay, this is that. And I wanted to know, I was trying to discover what was putting the lid on what I was able to achieve, because it seemed like I would get so far and then things would just crumble. Either I would find a way to self-destruct, and it would, the reality is, you're kind of looking around you and you're going, I'm self-destructing because this person, when really you're looking for a way out because you're just not big enough on the inside to handle what you've now grown. And that is true. So what was putting the lid on what I was able to achieve? And I saw at first that there were 3 areas of study that I had been incredibly intentional about for years. 3 disciplines that I had read hundreds of books about, took courses on, got licensed in, and then implemented and put into practice successfully. And the first one was this. It was leadership. I studied leadership from the time I was in my 20s. Why? Because my first job, I was 16. I was hired as a bank teller, which was really phenomenal. It was something unheard of back then. And I quickly came to realize, even though I was 16 and, young and dumb, but one thing I wasn't wrong about or dumb about was that most people don't know how to lead, and most managers are jerks. And that is just a reality. I don't know why people think that management is just about learning skills and telling people what to do. It's about leadership. It's about leadership. And so in my early 20s, I said, you know what? When I promote, when I get into positions, I don't want to be like that. I want to be someone that cares about the people that they lead, that's adding value to their life, that knows that they are an extension of what I'm doing and that they are cared for, and that I'm grateful for who they are, interested in them as a human, and want them to succeed. And that I'm okay if they succeed past me. In fact, that's great if smarter people outgrow what I can do. That's a good thing. I didn't want to be intimidated by that. And so I set out to raise leaders and to learn leadership. And so I did that by learning through studying under John C. Maxwell. Probably, I think last I counted, I've got about 14 of his books on the shelf. And so John Maxwell was a mega church pastor who had realized his one true passion wasn't really pastoring from a pulpit. It was pastoring by adding value to leaders who would then add value to others. And so he set out to raise leaders. And he is now considered the leadership guru of the world. Imagine having that title. He is a #1 New York Times bestselling author who's written over 80 books and sold more than 35 million books in 50 languages. And he coaches world leaders and Fortune 500 CEOs. He's one of the best public speakers you will ever hear. He's refined and honed in that skill. And he has been called the #1 leader in business by American Management Association and the world's most influential leadership expert by Inc. magazine. There's literally no one like John C. Maxwell on the planet. And so this is who trained me to lead. I implemented everything he taught about leadership, and I had phenomenal results. And over a decade after I was putting his teaching into practice, I don't know if you can hear puppy dog. He's coming down the stairs. There he is. Putting his teaching into practice, I made it official by meeting John, getting licensed through his organization as a public speaker, leadership trainer and coach, and event planner. And so when I say that I learned leadership from the best in the world, I literally learned leadership from the best in the world. And I know for certain that leadership ability is one of the masteries that has contributed the most to every area I have experienced any success at all. That includes parenting. That includes relationship with my family. That includes volunteerism. It includes every area. And make no mistake about it, I'm still growing in this area. The point of limitless living is that you never stop growing. You never tap out. The second discipline I studied and successfully implemented, or tragically didn't implement and experienced devastating failure when I didn't implement this, was emotional maturity. This is probably the biggest one. One thing I know about leading others well is that you cannot lead others well if you cannot lead yourself well. And you cannot lead yourself when you lack a high emotional IQ, or an EQ is what it's called. A high emotional EQ. And in a high emotional EQ, short version, let me give you these notes here, of a high emotional intelligence quotient is really, it breaks down to 2 competencies: a personal competence, which includes self-awareness and self-management, and social competence, social awareness and relationship awareness. And so I struggle a bit with 2 personality tendencies that are actually kind of polar opposite. I was born the baby of the family, but my only sibling was older than I was, and for various reasons did not develop the common firstborn traits, if you've ever read birth order theory. And so when that happens in a family, the next one up develops those firstborn traits. And so I was the baby with the firstborn traits. And so a friend once asked me, when we were starting to get to know each other, and she had read through this birth order theory, she asked me the birth order of my family, and she very much expected me to say that I was a firstborn. And she was stunned that I was a baby. And so the firstborn traits are typically reliable, well-behaved, conscientious, diligent, structured, rule-following, cautious, controlling, high achievers, assertive, hardworking, and determined, but also have a perfectionist tendency. So that's the good and the bad of both, right? And so she was, her response was like, "But you're so responsible." Well, why did she say that? Well, she said that because the baby of the family kind of has some different personality traits. The baby of the family is typically outgoing, sociable, fun-loving, free-spirited, charming, but also attention-seeking, dependent, risk-taking, manipulative, and self-centered. I have been every one of these. When I am at my worst, I am the worst of these. And when I am at my best, I am operating in the best of these. But I have 2 personalities. It's the wildest thing. And I had to work hard to balance the good with the bad. That's part of having a high emotional IQ or an EQ. It means evaluating the good and the bad, learning what circumstances tempt you to act out in the bad, and finding ways to temper that. Learning self-awareness so that you can have social awareness, right? Being strong in relationships. And so the thing is that having a high EQ means learning to function in ways that builds others up because you're healthy on the inside. You're adding value to others instead of taking away value from them. And the reason that this is so vital to unstoppable living is that when EQ was first discovered, okay, when this was first studied and talked about, it actually explained why people with the highest IQs, outperform people. People with the highest EQs outperform people with average. Nope, I'm getting this wrong. Okay. Back up. And the reason this is so vital to unstoppable living is that when EQ was first discovered, when it was first put into practice, theorized, talked about, right? It explained why people with the highest IQs outperform people with average IQs only 20% of the time. Okay, this is IQ. But people with average IQs, actual intelligence quotient, outperform those with high IQs 70% of the time. Why is that? That seems backwards. It seems like someone with a very high IQ should be able to outperform someone with a low IQ. Well, this threw a massive wrench into common thought that these high IQs was the source of all success. Well, it turns out it isn't high IQ that determines how successful you can be. It's your EQ. People with high EQs outperform those with high IQs all the time. Emotional intelligence can outperform intellect. One of the reasons I left full-time ministry in churches, I've talked about this before, is because I was talking through these 4 masteries. I was looking back over my life and kind of putting them all together. And I was working with our family counselor and telling him what I was thinking about was, coming next in my life. And so I shared with him what I'm sharing with you, these 4 masteries. And he works a lot with former ministers or current ministers. That's just kind of his area of expertise. He went to seminary, but then realized he really loved counseling. He nearly leaped off the table when I showed him these 4 masteries. He knew I was onto something. Why? He looked at me and he said, and Christy, sadly, pastors are some of the most emotionally immature leaders on the planet. Low EQ. He's not wrong. Part of this is true about some ministers is that they often go to seminary, but seminary doesn't include the work on the heart and on emotional intelligence. It just includes studying doctrine. It doesn't even, honestly, typically doesn't even include studying theology, which is the study of God, the nature of God. It's the study of doctrine, someone's doctrine. But the personal growth and development part isn't there. It's not until they start facing their lack of leadership ability and or the depth to which they're hurting people, they're not leading well, and it's starting to become apparent, that's when they realize they've got to raise their EQ. If they experience a ton of success and become, mega church, mega fast, and they skip that whole part, they crumble. At some point, it doesn't work. And that happens with all of us, not just pastors. So I learned a long time ago that spiritual maturity cannot surpass emotional maturity. In other words, you can study theology and scripture for 26 years like I have, and I've done that, but you can do that and still have low impact, emotionally unintelligent leader. You can still be a low impact, emotionally unintelligent leader. No amount of Bible memorization or even leadership experience can make up for this one thing right here. You have to raise your emotional intelligence quotient. And I know a lot of you are thinking about leaders in your life that have a very low EQ. Very frustrating. Listen, if you're not on my mailing list, go to christynarcy.com, sign up and get your free teachings. The free teaching series, How to Get a Miracle, 5 messages, actually not going to be free very soon here. Check out the fun titles in the series that you're going to get. Is God really in charge of everything? Job and why bad things happen to good people. Jonah and your free will. Jesus and how to do what he did. And the end of the world and what to do about it. Amazing. You're going to love it. It's really, really good stuff. The story of Jonah is so not what you think it is. You're going to love it. All right. So that series, as well as the Prosperity to Providence series that I launched this podcast with, that will be coming down soon because it will be a paid only experience. So grab it while you can or listen to it while you can. Okay. The third mastery that I saw emerge from my experience as I looked back and evaluated was systems. Systems. The ability to build systems around what matters most. When I was a director of operations, they gave me the nickname Special Ops. I was all about systems. I wanted systems that were duplicable, systems that made sense, systems that could easily be taught and transferred to others, systems. And systems became incredibly powerful to me after reading this book, The E-Myth. If you haven't read it and if you are an entrepreneur at all, or even a leader, this is one of the best books you could get, The E-Myth Revisited. Okay. It's been around for a lot of years. And that's what really just kind of lit my fire for systems. The right systems help you automatically put out the right result. Seems simple, right? And so systems in business, systems in entrepreneurship, but also systems in my personal life, right? They can be highly effective or they can be highly ineffective. Systems can be highly efficient or they can be highly inefficient. And systems can be highly efficient at producing highly ineffective results. It's building systems around what matters most that makes all the difference. So this could be your personal growth and development system. Here's an example from my own personal spiritual walk. When I first started spending an hour a day with God, it was 1998 when I made that commitment. And there was a speaker at a women's conference who touted her system for prayer. And it was this. She would spend 15 minutes on each. Pray, P-R-A-Y, praise, repent, ask, yield. Spend 15 minutes a day on each letter. And there was your hour of prayer a day with God. Simple and effective. I did that for 15 years. What I didn't realize was that it was highly efficient for achieving an hour a day with God. It was also highly effective at doubling down on my sense of lack. If you ask God for the same solutions every day for years, especially when it comes to finances, all you're doing is perpetually creating a world of lack. If you're using your belief that you are in lack and you have to ask God for provision, you perpetuate the lack because you're actually operating in unbelief. You're believing you don't already have. And we've talked about that in previous episodes. Sowing and reaping. It's sowing, it's reaping what you're sowing. Spending an hour a day with God is a great thing to aspire to. But if you spend that hour asking for things he told you not to ask for, you're in trouble. And I experienced that. He said, don't worry about food, shelter, and clothing. He said, don't ask me for these things. The birds don't ask me. The flowers in the field don't ask me because I already know they need them. They already know that I've supplied them. How much more valuable to God are you? Our asking should never be this agreement. It should only be an agreement of this has already been done for me. So our asking is an asking of gratitude, of thankfulness. Thank you, God, that this is already done and on its way. And I can do that with confidence because I already know provision has been loosed in heaven for me. It's already been approved by God. He doesn't have to approve it again. It's already there. When I come into agreement with this reality, I'm using my keys to the kingdom and my God-given authority and dominion over the planet Earth to loose what's been approved in heaven here on earth. But, and listen to this, if I keep asking because I don't believe I already have, I'm just expressing my unbelief to God. And he who asks while doubting, he doesn't already have, should not expect to receive anything from God. That is the Bible. So I changed the system. I created a journal that has nothing but confessions of what Jesus has already said about me and what he has already done for me. I stopped asking. I started believing. Confessions. To say the same thing. Confess means to say the same thing. To say the same thing God says. God says, I've already done this for you. I had to get it in my head. I was so used to being in lack. So now I have this highly effective and efficient system for influencing my heart with the truth, writing the truth on my heart rather than writing a lie on my heart every single day. The lie that I'm in lack. So leadership, emotional intelligence, and systems. Systems around what matters most. 3 disciplines I had studied, put into practice, and mastered, but one was missing. And the one missing was the 4th leg that was required for this table I was building, for any table I built to stand. And it was this: belief. What I believed about God was killing me the most. And because I had this distorted belief about God as a result of religion that I was raised under, most of us were, I had no ability to possess a faith that could move mountains, a faith that could see the unseen and bring it into reality, a faith that believed in the vision for my life when everything around me was screaming otherwise. Everything around me was completely opposite. A faith that could heal the sick, create something from nothing, see the end from the beginning. I didn't have the faith of God. The Bible doesn't tell us to have faith in God. It tells us to have the faith of God, to literally possess the same faith that God used to create the world and put planets in motion. Yes, that is the faith you are supposed to possess. Religion doesn't tell you that. Religion doesn't want you to know that. Religion gives you a fatalistic view of God. God's already made all the decisions, so there's nothing you can do. Religion says you are finite, even though you're made in the image of the infinite. And of course, there was the destructive belief that God was using pain to train me. You guys have heard me. I'm probably a broken record to most of you by now, but it's the most important thing that changed everything. Because all of the trauma I had experienced, if what I had been taught was true, that God allows pain because it's part of the growth process. It's how we become worthy of being able to be in the role he wants to give us. If that is true, then God's the abuser. And that is the one thing, man, I'm telling you. See, people who don't experience a lot of pain, maybe some pain here and there, they never get this. But when you experience trauma after trauma after trauma, and you're supposed to keep going back to God and connecting with God in your heart, and he's supposed to be your everything, but you can't trust him because you can't trust someone you think is going to abuse you, hurt you, let you suffer, waterboard you till you get it right. That's what religion teaches us, and it's garbage. That was the missing piece, the 4th leg. So, 4 masteries. And I had thought for years I would call this material the 4 masteries of a limitless life, but something hit me about a week ago, which caused all the rebranding. I'm calling this book, new course, etc., Meet the Unstoppable You. The 4 masteries of an unstoppable you. Somehow unstoppable just feels right. I think because life throws all these roadblocks in the way, and it's so easy. I've done it over and over. Another trauma hits and I just can't, okay, this must not be God. I must have gotten it wrong. Or I just don't have the energy. I don't have this. I can't get back up over this, right? How do you get to where you can be unstoppable and keep getting back up? I think I've told you guys when I counted the high negative emotional impact events in my life, it was over 40. Yeah. Unstoppable. So this was an introduction to a pivotal shift in the overall mission and vision of what you are going to get here. In one way or another, you're going to hear how to master your life in these 4 areas so that you can become unstoppable and resolute in everything that you do. So even though this was an introduction to where we're headed, I hope you got some good sound bites. I hope you got something you needed to hear this week, but we're going to keep moving forward. Before I go, I want to give you an advocacy update. Always giving you my disclaimer. Independent Women's Network is proud to collaborate with chapter leaders and members and me, a full-time employee as national chapter director, and respects our independent thinking. My views and statements through this personal work on my podcast and in my social media, they are mine and they don't necessarily reflect the position of Independent Women's Network. But here's what's going on at IW. One thing politicians do so brilliantly is create chaos over here to keep you distracted while they do something maybe even more insidious over there, right? The Biden administration's Department of Labor recently finalized a rule that launches a war on working women who depend on independent, flexible work. They are trying to reclass them as employees. And the rule makes it harder for self-employed workers to be classified as independent contractors. That's really hard if you're a business owner and you have to hire everyone as employees and you can't hire independent contractors. Think about that. The left hates women. I know we don't want everything to be about left versus right, but at the end of the day, the left has asked God to leave their party legitimately. Like they don't want God in the party. They hate women. It's amazing to me that anyone can consider the Obama, Biden, Harris policies of any kind at this point because they are dead set on destroying women. They don't care that you can't feed your family right now. I just paid $8 per pound for ground beef. Are you kidding me? One of those large bottles of pepper, just pepper. I just needed pepper, right? That you can get it at Costco for a lot cheaper, but apparently they don't even have it in stock. But the Kroger brand, like the basic Kroger brand, is $15.99. Used to be $4. The most basic spice in your food, okay? They have created open borders, which always increases crime against women and children. They're just erasing the definition of a woman. It's not even sacred anymore, forcing us to give up our right to equal opportunity that males have. They want us to give our equal opportunity over to males. So it's no longer equal opportunity. It's for sports and scholarships. They're making us shower and share restrooms and locker rooms and private spaces with men. They've defunded the police, which impacts the most vulnerable, women, children, elderly. Encouraged and attempting to enshrine into law the legal removal of a minor female's breasts. Literal female mutilation. It's disgusting. And now they want to steal work flexibility from all women, including single moms, which will again have a disproportionate impact on minority women. They have literally created a war on women, and especially on women of color, on all fronts. They are not the party for the minorities, you guys. They are not. This is the one no one saw coming because we're distracted by everything else. We're having to defend the definition of a woman and our right to exist as our own biological sex. So this is disastrous. It's really disastrous. And think about who your independent contractors are. Your Mary Kay lady, your real estate agent, your hairdresser, your nail girl. I can't think of the word. Nail tech. Transcribers, optometrists, artists, writers, ride sharing and delivery services. Yeah. And this is a policy that California already implemented and it failed. And it's failed small businesses. So we've shared some of their stories, and you can go to iwfeatures.com to listen to the stories. You can go to our action center, make your voice heard, say, I don't want this. Tell your legislators to oppose. So hope you guys are doing amazing. We're going to do amazing things here. Love you a lot. Talk soon.